she called us up after we ate and she said, Mom, guess what? Dad, guess what? I am going to get to interview Michele Tafoya. And she said, she is my biggest mentor. She said, that is who I really want to assimilate and aspire to. She said, I just have followed her so long. And she was so excited. And after the interview, she sent us those pictures that were on that your friend had seen. And she said, I achieved one of my goals, Mom. I met Michele Tafoya. And that was 6 weeks before she died.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. That is Carley McCord, the mother of young Carley McCord, an up-and-coming sports reporter whom I had the pleasure of meeting one time 6 weeks before she died in a tragic plane crash. Is there any other kind? The story is remarkable. Carley was a sports reporter, as I said, married to a young man whose dad, in other words, her father-in-law, was the offensive coordinator at LSU. Joe Burrow and LSU were playing in the Peach Bowl, the semifinals before the national championship. Carley was on her way to cover the game. She got on a small prop plane hours before the game, and minutes after takeoff, the plane crashed. Carley McCord's mom, Karen, has written a book called Only Rainbows that talks about, of course, the amazing life of Carley and how she's handling and the family is handling this never-ending nightmare. I ask you to subscribe to the podcast because we try to bring you the interviews that we feel are meaningful, important, relevant, and I think anyone who's going through grief will take some heart and some faith and some strength from the mother of this beautiful young woman. So please subscribe, and we're going to tell you the whole story that goes beyond anything I've just told you. We are happy today to be sponsored by American Independence Gold. You know, there's so much going on, Chinese U.S. Treasury hack, a new virus spreading in China, and other things unfolding that we don't even know about or maybe aren't being told to us. So you don't want to gamble with your financial future. Regardless of who the president is, regardless of who's in office, safeguarding your wealth is essential. We know that this administration is going to face its issues, its hurdles, its people trying to get in the way. So relying solely on digital systems and banks, that's a risk you can't afford to take. And that's why I want you to take a look at American Independence Gold. Visit tafoyagold.com, TAFOYA gold.com. It's right there on the screen to learn more, or call 833-324-4653. For generations, gold and silver have been the ultimate safe haven, weathering wars, recessions, market crashes. This is more than just owning gold. It's about taking control of your financial future. As a proud veteran-owned company, American Independence Gold goes the extra mile by supporting military families. They cover custodial fees for life on qualifying accounts, and they donate a portion of every purchase to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Don't you want to secure your future? Act now before it's too late. Do it now. Visit tafoyagold.com, TAFOYA gold.com, or call 833-324-4653, 833-324-4653, tafoyagold.com. Make the smart move for your future. Do it today at tafoyagold.com. Carley McCord, author of Only Rainbows, is next. Karen, it's great to see you. Congratulations on the book. I'm sure Carley is very proud of you from her perch. What struck me about the book, Karen, as I began it, was how you described her morning drive to the airport that day and how you seemed to be so in tune with everything that was going on in her brain. How much was she communicating with you that morning?
Well, actually, it was the night before, Michele. And what happened is we were having a little cup of coffee and we were sitting around the table. And she said, Mom, I'm scared to get on that plane tomorrow. And I said, then don't get on the plane. And she goes, oh, Mom, I've got to do it. I've got to do it for work. I've got to do it for, the family. I've got tickets and, I'm going to be sitting in the press box doing my thing. And so as a mom, I looked at her and I said, well, then call me when you get there. What good is that? But as moms, that's what we say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I really, truly think she had a premonition about the plane going down. She had not
It,
only
it,
told me, she had told other people as well.
it was a prop plane. So it was that what was behind her nervousness?
I think so. Although throughout the book, you see her always afraid to fly.
Yeah,
She was
I
always afraid.
understand that. Believe me, I understand that. When you have to travel as much as reporters do,
Yeah.
you feel like, oh, it's going to catch up with me, you know.
Yeah.
But then what jumped out at me is you talk about when she was born,
Hmm.
and you had this sense from the moment you laid eyes on her that she was not going to have a long life. How would you describe that feeling and what you remember about seeing her in your arms as a baby?
I can remember that moment distinctly. I picked her up. I looked at her. She was so beautiful. She had a beauty even at birth. And even the doctor said, oh, she's beautiful. And I looked at her little fingers and I looked at her little hands and her little lifeline. And not that I'm a big lifeline person, but I remember looking at it and it was very short. It panicked me. And I never told anybody about this because I didn't want to put it out into the universe.
Hmm. Hmm.
But instinctively, I knew that she wasn't going to be here as long as I was going to be here. I just, in my soul, in my gut, I just knew I was going to lose her one day. And it always made me hover over her a little bit, even though she would fly away, to Cleveland and be by herself and come back. I just would always want to hear her voice to make sure it was okay. It was a weird feeling, and it was a premonition, I guess, that only moms get. You know?
She was flying and she was ready to fly to this game. LSU, her father-in-law was
Mhm.
very involved. Her husband was originally going to go with her
Correct.
because it was his dad was the offensive coordinator at LSU,
Correct.
correct?
That's it.
So, and fatefully, he decided not to, he couldn't go. What
Mhm.
happened there?
Well, he had to work. And so one of the things was is that if he could not work the Peach Bowl, if they got into the national championship, he could get off. It was kind of like one of those trade things because at the time he worked plant work. And so he could go to if he was going to go to the national championship and take the week off, then he wasn't going to go to this one because it was holiday time. And so many people were taking off at the time. He had to, choose one game or the other. And of course, Joe Burrow was at the helm and his dad, Steve, Ensminger was the offensive coach. And so he was really convinced that they would get to the national championship. So he chose to hopefully go to the national championship.
So it was like a
So
trade-off. So he
it
skipped
was a
the
trade
Peach
off.
Bowl so he could go.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that his dad, again,
Hmm.
found out about the plane crash before the game.
Right.
How did he learn about it? What did you think? I mean,
Yeah.
listen. It's so strange to ask you these questions, and we're going to get seriously into your experience here
No,
for in
no,
a
this
minute.
is
But
fine. This is fine.
I remember the day,
Uh-huh.
and I remember seeing him on the field and thinking, what is going through his mind? Hey, are you looking for something to do for your health to give you better health? I'm going to say look no further than Kimchi One from Brightcore Nutrition. Kimchi One packs all the fermented nutrition of kimchi in convenient capsules, arming your gut with over 900 unique strains of probiotics supporting gut flora and digestion. I highly recommend this product because all health starts in the gut. So putting the right fermented superfood in your gut improves every aspect of your health, your skin, your hair, your mental performance. Kimchi One is all natural, made in the USA and non-GMO. And today you can get an exclusive offer. Only for my viewers, 25% off with code Michele by going to mybrightcore.com/Michele with one L, Michele, or call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. Give them a call now at 888-927-5980, and their educated staff will make sure that Kimchi One is right for you. 888-927-5980, or go to mybrightcore.com/Michele. What is going through his mind?
Right. It was so interesting because, Steve, if you know Steve, he was very focused, and this was his ultimate goal in life, was to get to this championship game. And so to be at the Peach Bowl in the semifinals, just one game away with the Heisman Trophy winner, and he was the offensive coach, this was the pinnacle of his dreams. And it was also when he found out his nightmare that his son's wife died in a plane crash. So the emotions were, let me get through the game. And interestingly enough, we've spoken since then, and he said that's what Carley would have wanted, to do your job. And so Carley would have wanted him to coach that game. And you see him on the field right after he found out, and you see him wiping his eyes. And if you know Steve Ensminger, he's not a crier, so that scene was very touching. And but he found out probably right after the plane crash. He probably found out way sooner than we did. And
Okay, let's go there,
mhm,
Karen. So you're sitting with her the night before and you're telling her, then just don't get on the plane.
right,
She wanted to go do her job, and I
right,
get that, and we'll touch on that more.
right.
And then how did you find out that the plane very shortly after takeoff had gone down?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I found out I was at Fresh Market. It's a grocery store. I don't know if you know the Fresh Market, but they had, lots of good stuff and everything. And so I was there because we were preparing for a party. I mean, LSU was playing, and we were one step away from the championship. So I was gathering all the goodies and everything. I get to the car. I looked at my watch and I said, I haven't heard from Carley, but she's probably gotten busy. All of a sudden, one of her bridesmaids that were in her wedding called me up and said, "Miss Karen, is it true?" And I said, "What?" And then she hung up on me because she
Ugh.
realized that I didn't know.
Oh,
And so she called me back, or I called her back, whatever. And she said, "There's been a plane crash, but there's been one survivor." So at the time, we thought it was one survivor. Everybody else in the world knew that Carley was the first one that was out of the plane and had passed away. But at the time, we thought there was one survivor. I ran back into the Fresh Market, and this is where the story gets really odd. I walked in tears, and the reason why I did is because I couldn't drive home. Crawled back into the store, and there was this man, Michele, and he was beautiful. Okay. And I'm not talking about the athletic beauty that, you've seen, and we've all seen in the world. It was like he had this curly, thick black hair, this red sweater, about 40-ish years old. And he grabbed me in his arms and he said, "What's wrong?" And, I'm doing the ugly cry, the snot, and and the whole thing. And I'm on this man, in this man's arms, and he is hugging me tightly. And he goes, "It's going to be okay. And your mission will be done. Don't worry about it. And I will drive you home." And I'm like crying in this man's arms. Stranger, beautiful stranger. All I could say is I could remember him vividly. And it was like a glow, but it wasn't a glow. And I felt comfortable enough to cry in his arms. Well, needless to say, Fresh Market chimed in and said, we'll take her home. And so I wanted to thank the man. And when I turned around to thank the man, he was gone. He had disappeared. I didn't know where he was, nobody in the store, because I said, I really want to thank that man. And he was gone. Never contacted me. And this has been a nationwide story.
Yeah.
Never contacted me and said, Karen, I was the one that held you. And he was gone. And later that day, I was in my priest's arms, and I was devastated, as was my whole family and all my friends, and we were surrounded by people. And the priest came over, and he said, Karen, God's going to give you the grace to get through this. And at that moment, Michele, it was so weird because I had to write it down because I wrote it down in my book, my notebook, so I wouldn't forget it because, things go through your mind and you forget things. But I remember saying, God, I'm willing and I'll accept the task, whatever it may be. And the journey has been hard. The journey has been hard on me, my family, my husband, my kids, but I was willing to accept the task. And I didn't know what the task was at that time. But I said, you have to do it in baby steps. Promise me that. And the first time I got a little inkling of what I was supposed to do was Tom Rinaldi, whom you know, and he did a story on her right before the national championship. So he came over, and I looked at Tom and I said, "Please write the book, Tom. Write the book." And he said, "Karen, it's a great book, but it's not mine to write. It's yours to write." And that's when I realized I had to put it on pen and paper. Now, I've written a book before. It, dealt with infertility, and it really was more for people who were going through infertility and that sort of thing. I am not an author, and I did that. I did that. My doctor and I did that, and to hand it out to people, friends and families. I didn't seriously promote it or anything like that. And I always said, no, I will never write again, ever, ever, ever. And here I am. The task was given to me. And I was like, oh God, please, no, do not let me write it. I don't know how to promote a book. I don't know how to write a book. I'm just not good at this. I have 1,000 of these books, Lessons of the Lilies, in my garage, and don't give me this task. But when I wrote it by hand. And I could remember my hand just writing and just flowing on the paper. And I just felt God and Carley talking to me as I wrote this book. And it's beautiful to me, and I hope it is to the
It's
readers.
yeah, I highly recommend it. And for people in our audience who don't know, Tom Rinaldi is now a sideline reporter for Fox. He had been at ESPN for a long, long time, and really does a wonderful job with stories like Carly's.
Hmm.
So he was the right person to do that story, but he told you the book was yours.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know how you've survived this because I'm a mom of two, and I think I, I can't even go there. Like, I'm going to well up.
right.
Let me tell you how I found out.
Okay.
So if you're having trouble sleeping, and boy, who isn't these days, have I got a product for you. It's called Sleep Cream. Sleep, CREME, and you can find them at sleepcream.com. I'll give you a little code to use for a minute for free shipping. But listen, I was introduced to this product and I thought, no way is a CBD cream uh, that I apply at bedtime going to help me sleep better. Well, it proved me wrong, and it's proving a lot of you wrong. I know, because the company's getting emails from a lot of my listeners. I'm getting emails from listeners who are saying how much this product is helping them. Let me tell you, it's a CBD based product. It's all natural. And you just put it on the insides of your forearms and elbows, maybe bottoms of your feet works for some people, right around your, under your neck, by your neck works for some people. And then what it does is it allows your body to relax and go to sleep. And even if you wake up in the night, heck, put a little bit more on. I wake up sometimes, just TMI, because I got to pee. And then I'll put a little bit more on. And the next thing I know, my body is chilling out and I can sleep. So not a drug, not a prescription, just sleep cream. You can find them at sleepcream.com, sleepcreme.com. Try it for a couple of nights. And if it doesn't work for you, they will give you your money back, guaranteed. You don't even have to return the product. So what have you got to lose? Go to sleepcream.com, sleepcreme.com. For the next few weeks, use the code GAMEDAY at checkout to get free standard shipping on your first order. That's code GAMEDAY at checkout. If you're ready for your best sleep ever, sleepcreme.com. So Carley had interviewed me at the Superdome.
Highlight of her life.
Oh, it was Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving. I was there doing, I think it was the Falcons at Saints.
Yep.
And someone had said, "Hey, there's a young lady who wants to interview you. Her name's Carley McCord. Will you do the interview?" And I said, "Sure." And I went out there, and here was this. First of all, she's tiny. She
She
was
is.
tiny
She's tiny.
and
100
beautiful.
pounds.
Just, tiny and beautiful. And I thought, let me see what this little thing is made of, and we did the interview. And I guess a photo of it got, published somewhere. And I got a text from a friend of mine in Ohio, of all places, and she said, "How well did you know her?" That was the first part of the text. "How well did you know her?" And I said, "What?" And she texted me the photo of Carley and me on the sidelines there and said, "Did you not hear about this?" And then I read that this had happened. And it was so heartbreaking to me, Karen, because she was so young and she was aspiring to so much. And it was so evident how much energy she was willing to put into what she was doing, and how much enthusiasm and love of sports and ambition and grace. She was lovely. And I'll tell you something, that was at a time in my career where I was really getting tired of the grind of sideline reporting. So I'd been doing it for a long, long time.
Right.
And this story, I said to myself, I'm dedicating every game from here on out to Carley. Like when I think it's too cold to go out on the field, when I think I'm too tired to write another note, whatever it is, I'm going to do it because I know Carley would have given anything to be in my shoes. I'm doing it for Carley. So for the rest of that season, and really for the remainder of my career, whenever I felt myself, whatever it was, I do this because Carley would give anything to be doing this. Do it for Carley. And so that really stayed with me for the rest of my career, Karen. You and I talked about that as you interviewed me for the book.
And I still cry.
Well, you know what? I have to fight it because again, I'm a mom like you. I can't imagine. So you're sitting here, even though you're fighting tears and you've gone through a parent's worst nightmare, somehow you're managing to smile and talk about Carley like she's in the next room, and she's right there in your heart. So I get that part.
Right.
But how do you function, Karen?
It's very hard, but like you said, I function through these stories, and excuse me, but and I'll tell you why, because I'm going to give you my version of when she met you. Okay. We went to Thanksgiving, and Tracy and I decided to go with her. She invited us to the game, and we went with her. And we had just finished Thanksgiving dinner, and she called me up. She called Tracy and I up. Tracy is my husband.
Right.
And she said, "Guess what, Mom?" And she's been on the sidelines, and she's, of course, she's worked with Erin Andrews on the sideline. Laura Rutledge, was her pageant. Laura was Miss Florida, and Carly was an almost Miss Louisiana. She would say she was first loser. But so she had been with other sideline reporters, some of the big names such as you. And she called us up after we ate, and she said, "Mom, guess what? Dad, guess what? I am going to get to interview Michele Tafoya." And she said, "She is my biggest mentor." She said, "That is who I really want to assimilate and aspire to." She said, "I just have followed her so long." And she was so excited. And after the interview, she sent us those pictures that were on that your friend had seen. And she said, "I achieved one of my goals, Mom. I met Michele Tafoya." And that was 6 weeks before she died. And so, but saying that helps me because she was there, and I knew she was there. She had a national contract, and she worked with the Saints and the Pels, and she had a lot under her belt. She worked for the Cleveland Browns, but that's a whole nother story. That she really was not a broadcaster; she was a scout. If you want to go there, but it talking it out and talking it through just brings me joy because she was almost there. And why can I smile? Because I'm hoping that this book hits nationally so she could say she was a national sideline reporter. And so that's what kept me going is that this book just needs to hit so that I can make her a national name because she was this close.
I, she was on her way.
Yeah.
And that's only part of the tragedy. She was your daughter, and you write in the book about her personality, her glow, her energy. I mean, she just sounded like the kind of kid that any mother would be proud of. And I know she wasn't your only. How are her
No.
how have her how are her siblings doing?
They are doing real well, but at first it was very, very hard. It was hard on the family, and everybody grieves differently. And Carson became the rock of the family. My husband kind of turned inward. Kaylee went outward, and in different ways. Kaylee formed a children's line to celebrate Carly and to give all the money to children with heart problems. And so that was her way of grieving. Carson was the rock, and he would call me every day. And I can remember during the national championship game, we were there, and LSU had won, because I was like, "LSU, you've got to win," and I could remember his head sitting on top of me like, "Mom, I'm going to protect you." And then there was my
And
husband.
Carson's the youngest, right?
Carson is the youngest, yes.
Kaylee was the oldest.
And Kaylee was the oldest, and Carly was the middle.
Yeah.
And then Tracy turned inward where he just didn't want to talk about it. And he still hadn't even none of them have read the book. Carson read a little bit of it, but interestingly enough, none of them have read the book. They just, in their time, they will.
Yeah, yeah. I listen. Yeah. I honestly can't imagine. And so this is really,
Yeah.
my heart is sitting here breaking for you, Karen.
And
But this young lady, she left something for all of us. So every day, we've had some recent tragedies. There was a plane crash over Alaska. We
I
had
can't look at that.
yeah,
That's funny. I can't.
I'm sure you
I
can't.
just, I
I
just,
don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then we
yeah.
had the one at Reagan National. We've had some incidents, and I'm sure it's got to be It's got to be like post-traumatic for you
It
to even
is.
hear such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But for people who had loved ones
Mm-hmm.
perish in those incidents, what would be your advice? Hey, I mentioned earlier American Independence Gold. You've got to check them out. You want your wealth to be protected. And so I would strongly consider part of your portfolio being in precious metals like gold and silver. And this is where American Independence Gold comes in. American Independence Gold, veteran owned, and they take care of vets. They donate a portion of every purchase to Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Great company. Find them at tafoyagold.com, TAFOYA gold.com, or call 833-324-4653, 833-324-4653. For generations, gold has been a safe haven for wealth. American Independence Gold goes the extra mile by supporting our military vets. And as I mentioned, they donate to Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Don't wait to secure your future. Act now. Visit tafoyagold.com, TAFOYA gold.com, or call 833-324-4653, 833-324-4653. Make the smart move for your future today at tafoyagold.com. But for people who had loved ones
Mm-hmm.
perish in those incidents, what would be your advice?
One day at a time, one step at a time, 1 minute at a time. And people would say, Karen, what can we do? And I looked at them and I'd say, pray for me from head to toe. That is what you could do for me. You could, pray whatever your religion is, however you go, just pray that we can make it, because it's a minute by minute thing. And then a little bit later, it becomes a 5 minute to 5 minute thing. And then it comes an hour thing. It never has gotten to the day to day thing. I think about her probably all day. She's somewhere in the back of my psyche. But then after a while, you have to pull your big girl panties up and say, okay, we can do this. This is the new normal. It's not something I chose, but what can I learn from it? And what can I give back from it? And that's where the book comes in. That's where Only Rainbows comes in. I really wrote it from the point of view, if you're a sports enthusiast, you should read the book, because it has a lot of sports in it. But if you're grieving, I think it helps. Even if it's just a little bit, I've done my job.
Yeah, and I think that for grieving, for anyone who's going through any kind of grieving, or if you
Hmm.
know someone who is, this book, Only Rainbows, can be a source of hope. Um, hope. I think that's
Yeah, it's
and
so.
maybe a source of strength. You are like so strong, I can't even stand it. And but it doesn't surprise me, having met Carly,
Yeah.
that her mom would be this strong. I think she
Apples
gets,
don't fall far
they
from
don't fall
trees.
that far, Karen. They don't.
They don't fall far from trees. And may I share this story because it's hilarious. Carly was raw. Carly was goofy. I mean, she would get on the sideline, Michelle, and she would do ESPN hits. But before she would climb up on the cheerleaders and do a stunt or something before she did it. And so she was hilarious. She was a funny, funny human being. Well, right after she died, we had to go and make funeral arrangements. And needless to say, the way she died, we had to cremate her. So they said, okay, let's go into the urn room and let's pick out an urn, which, while everybody else is talking football and everybody else is talking about the tragedy, we are picking out urns. So this was supposed to be, this heavy, heavy moment. It was. But I walk in and there's this urn and it's pink and the bow is like twisted and the wires hanging out. And I'm like, stopped in my tracks. Mom, this is it. And so anyway, Tracy's looking at me like, no, it's not. And then so he's pushing me over. He goes, look at these beautiful angels. And then the girl's saying, look at this one. It's got a pretty cross. So I walk back and I go, I like this one. And I said, do a lot of people choose? Does a lot of people do a lot? I don't know, does or do, whatever. A lot of people choose this one. And she looks at me, she goes, no, ma'am. In fact, it's discontinued because no one has chosen it. And I said, that's the one. And so here's this goofy bow with this goofy urn looking thing. And so the day of the funeral, she rolled up to me and she said, she showed me the urn and I looked at it and I said, oh, it's simply beautiful. And everybody else is looking at it. And she goes, well, I fixed the bow for you and it's and it was so raw and it was so goofy. And it was like Carly going, not getting in a standard urn here,
Yeah.
in this
Oh, that
urn.
I love that story. I love
It
that.
was
I
so
do.
funny.
You know,
Yeah,
it reminds me of this little story. I was at John Madden's funeral, and it was a very tight group of us, and it was very somber and
mhm,
sad and great storytelling and all the rest.
right.
But when at the end, when they went to roll his coffin out of the actual chapel and to where he was going to be interred, the fire alarm in the church went off. And everyone was like, what is that? And I said, that's John. That's John exiting and reminding all of us, just that
I'm good.
he's good. He's still with us. He set off the alarm and we're all supposed to pay attention.
I am good. And
And that's what
she's
I
done.
believed. And so that reminds me of that similar feeling. We all deal in different ways. And if that pink urn made sense to you, Karen, then by gosh, that was supposed to be the way.
That was
Tell
the
me,
one.
why did you name the book Only Rainbows?
It's an interesting story in and of itself. Right before she died, now I can't tell you the exact time. I guess I could go back to the internet, but look at the exact time, but I haven't. But her last Instagram post was only rainbows after rain, the sun will always come again. And that is a line in Andy Grammer's song, Keep Your Head Up. She had met Andy Grammer quite a few times. She worked for CBS Radio in Cleveland. And she actually sang with Andy Grammer and she met him a few times. And so anyway, she followed him and she loved the song Keep Your Head Up. And there's a line in there that says, only rainbows after rain, the sun will always come again. And the night before she was going to get on the plane, she told me something really prophetic that I didn't even realize until way later. She said, "Mom, I love that song, Only Rainbows After Rain." She called it that, she said, "I'm going to think about that when I get on the plane." So didn't think about that, and so she posted it. Was she nervous? What did she know she was going down? Uh, I don't know because, I don't think any of us will know because, no one was there to verify the story. But the post came out and about maybe an hour or two later, Andy Grammer came on television and he sang the line for her. And he said, only rainbows after rain, the sun will always come again, and, to the McCord family. And so he left a tweet with his voice on it and sang that song. And so all of a sudden it exploded. Everybody was sending me rainbows and, rainbow cups, rainbow jewelry,
So,
rainbow,
so this is your thing now.
it is my thing. And so the book just had to be only rainbows. I mean, it just had to be. And what's interesting, Michelle, is just she sends me signs all the time. We will be sitting in a restaurant and like if I'm looking at Tracy, I'll go, Tracy, there's a picture of a rainbow behind you. And we hadn't chosen the seat, the
Right.
hostess has chosen the seat. Or we'll take pictures and there'll be rainbows behind us. Or she was supposed to be in maid of honor in a wedding. And of course, she didn't make it. And the photographer's taking the picture, and he goes, Logan, I'm really sorry, but there's this light that keeps coming in on your pictures, and I can't get it out. And when he did, snapped the picture and looked at the picture, it was a rainbow where she was supposed to be standing next to Logan. And so I laughed and I said, she only had a microphone on Earth. She has a skyline in heaven.
I just love that. There's a song by the Rolling Stones where they say she's a rainbow. And so I will think of Carley in that light forever. And listen, her memory, as little as I knew her, lived with me. And it still does,
Yeah,
Karen. And I wish you only rainbows from here on out.
thank
The
you.
book is Only Rainbows, folks. And Karen, when does it hit? Because I know I
It
just got
hits.
the.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is on pre-order right now. So you
Okay.
can go to Barnes and Noble, and you can go to Amazon.com, but it actually is going to be released on February 25th. So we are so excited, and I feel like I'm giving birth again.
Oh, you are such a gem, and and just know that you are emanating a strength that a lot of people can take strength from, gain hope from, and I wish you nothing but
The
rainbows.
best.
That's all I can say, Karen.
May I
I
share one more story? Do we have time to
sure,
share one more
yes,
story?
we
You sure?
do.
Okay. This is a story that I would really like to your readers to understand or kind of follow. And I went to grief counseling afterwards. Obviously, you can't do this without some kind of guidance. And I went to grief counseling, and she said, if there was one day to change, what day would it be? And I said, of course, you know the day. And she goes, no, stay with me. And she says, what would you have done? And I said, I would have slashed her tires. I would have taken her spark plugs out of her car. I would have hung on the plane's wings. I would have stopped that plane. She goes, ah, so you would have played God. And I said, no, you asked me what would I have done. She goes, don't you think God could have done all those things? And I said, yes. And she goes, Karen, don't ever feel guilty because it wasn't yours to change. It was her time. And in my soul, deep, deep, deep in my soul, I understood.
Well, you are a pillar of strength, and I love that part of the story because it reminds us there's only so much that we can control, and the rest we have to
Was
just respond and react.
yes,
I applaud you
yeah.
for your faith, your strength, and your smile. And thank you so much, Karen. It's just
No,
been an
thank
absolute
you.
privilege to speak to you.
Thank you. And on a side note, Michelle, I don't know if we're off or not, or if you want to edit this. You gave me the ending of the book. We were on the phone call, and I asked you a question. I don't know if you remember because you get so many questions,
I
but
remember.
I asked you the question, how did you feel after you walked off the field Super Bowl night and you were ready to put up your microphone? And you can answer the rest of the story because you tell it more beautifully than I do. Uh, but after our conversation, I was in tears, but I was struggling with an ending. And that conversation led me to my ending. And it was so beautiful. I love, love, love the ending. And our conversation gave me the strength to write that.
And so, what we're going to do is we're going to say if people want to know the rest of the story, they have to buy Only Rainbows. Go and pre order it. It comes out February 25th. Karen McCord is the amazing author of this book about her amazing, beautiful, energetic daughter who left us far too soon. But as you said, it was her time, as difficult as that is to accept. Karen, I always end my show by saying, be brave and do good. And you are doing both of those things every minute of your life. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you. It's been my honor, my privilege. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Longhorns quarterback Sam Ehlinger, a product right here from Austin, Texas, actually went to the same high school as Saints quarterback Drew Brees. He's also in the watch to win the Heisman Trophy and operating under one of the best offensive minds in football and their head coach, Tom Herman. A lot of people even compare him to Tim Tebow, but you look on the flip side to quarterback Joe Burrow for the LSU Tigers, who looked a lot more comfortable in that new offense last weekend against Georgia Southern, but he says that there is still a lot to prove before tomorrow night. Well, earlier today, the Saints brought in 6 wide receivers for a workout, and it was no secret that one of them was former league member Antonio Brown, and that's because there are never any secrets with Antonio Brown. He made it a point to make sure everyone knew he was here by tweeting it, posting to social media, even taking a selfie with Zion Williamson. Thanks, guys. Once again, joined by Taysom Hill. Taysom, you were able to travel down to Baton Rouge a few weeks ago and watch LSU take on Texas A&M. I know you said your wife is a Texas A&M fan. She's from College Station, but everyone was there probably to get a little glimpse at Joe Burrow. Am I right?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first, I don't know how loud you want to say that. You're kind of throwing my wife under the bus a little bit down here. But look, I've heard so much about going to Baton Rouge and being in Tiger Stadium.
The Tigers advanced to 3-0 in their biggest win since 2011, and it's safe to say Coach Ed Orgeron's group has been the biggest surprise so far this college football season. And although they may be ranked number 6 in the nation and have beaten 2 top 10 teams, the LSU Tigers still have a long way to go this football season, and the schedule doesn't get any easier. Guys, thank you very much. Roman, happy Thanksgiving. The Falcons season seems lost, but playing spoiler versus the arch rival, no doubt on their minds tonight. And why? Do the Saints extend the winning streak to 10, or do they suffer a setback? Well, everyone loves a good family football story, and there will be a great one on display this Saturday at the New Orleans Bowl as Middle Tennessee head coach Rick Stockstill and his son Brent Stockstill, who is also their starting quarterback, will be playing his last game under his dad. And they say that there would be nothing more special than to go out in their career together with a win. Julius Randle's 6th career triple-double tonight. Can you just talk about his contribution on the night and what he's done so far this season for you all?
The bump in the road. Everything was so smooth today here in Jefferson Parish. The only bump in the road, I may have fallen off his float when Carly and I and our photographer Chip Hornstein were getting off his float. Not a proud moment, and somebody may or may not have laughed.
I didn't laugh.
She laughed, but it's okay. Nobody's going on injured reserve. We're all okay. We'll just play with a little pain doing the sportscast later this week. For a laughing Carley McCord, I am Fletcher Mackle. Back to you all in the studio.
Dome field advantage. Any Saints fan knows how much of a positive that is for this team. And this weekend, with a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have the opportunity to get that dome field advantage throughout the playoffs. But it's not going to be an easy task because not only do the Saints have a lot at stake here, but the Pittsburgh Steelers do as well. They're trying to win their division and get to Atlanta to get another Lombardi trophy also. But it's something about the magic and the spark in the Superdome on Sundays that gives this team a little extra energy. And that's exactly what they'll need. Everyone's going to be talking about that blown call for a long time, something that Coach Sean Payton just said in his post-game press conference that the league apologized to him about, because not only was it interference, it was also helmet to helmet. When you watched the call, when you watched the play that was not called, what was going through your mind? What was your thoughts? And have you ever seen a call that was blown in a game-changing situation like that? It was an East Bank versus West Bank battle tonight here at the Superdome from start to finish. A truly hard-fought game from both sides. But it was ultimately Edna Carr who walked away with the win thanks to winning the turnover battle. Facing this Baltimore defense will be one of the hardest hurdles to jump over for this Saints offense so far this season. And now with veteran wide receiver Ted Ginn Jr. being placed on IR, it's time to see if Traquan Smith can step up and really deliver like they'll need him to. Reporting from the Saints practice facility, I'm Carley McCord for WDSU News. Thank you, David Wesley. The Pelicans were able to get it done, snap the 5-game losing streak. And one of the things that Coach Gentry said coming into this game is that they needed to do a better job of closing them out. They did exactly that. What was the difference? Under first-year offensive coordinator Steve Ensminger, the LSU offense has been called a number of things by the media and LSU football fans. Underwhelming, inconsistent, and saying that there is a misutilization of their talent. But when it comes to offensive lineman Garrett Brumfield, he said he wants to thank those people for giving them the motivation because it's their doubt that fueled their fire to get them to a New Year's Six Bowl. And now they head on the road to Phoenix to take on UCF, a team that comes in on a 25-game win streak. And he says they want nothing more than to prove that they are who they really are. The New Orleans Pelicans had a busy offseason, parting ways with all-star DeMarcus Cousins, obtaining Nikola Mirotic, and snagging Julius Randle. Now the big question is, with Julius Randle, Anthony Davis, and Nikola Mirotic all on the same roster, it could be one of the best trios in the NBA. But the big question is, will we see them all play together?